Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm coming to you from Bali, Indonesia, and this week is a really special week. I did not plan for this to be on a week where the Balinese were welcoming in their ancestors, and I always trust the perfect weaving and orchestration of everything in life, really. And so I'm really grateful for this moment for you all to be here. I know it's late for some of you. I know it's early for some of us. And yeah, it's a very personal masterclass, probably one of the more vulnerable and personal masterclasses that I can host. And I am all about vulnerability. I'm all about finding the power and like our underbelly and the soft places that we're afraid to reveal as women, because I really do believe that when we embrace that, we can activate more of our gifts and more of our power. And I'll explain a little bit of that here shortly. But I want to start by just taking a moment together, really honoring everyone being here. The world is fast right now, and there's so much going on. And for you to be here in this moment, I don't take lightly. So thank you for being here. And if you're going to be here, fully be here in this moment, honor this moment, take what you need from this moment, and just allow yourself to really receive what's here and why you would be here in this moment. So let's close our eyes together and let's call in the ancestors. So just connecting to your body, to your breath, bringing yourself here to this eternal moment where all that matters, all knowing, all that exists is here right in front of you. Acknowledging the perfection, the beauty, the safety, the abundance of being right here, alive, breathing, healthy, a roof over your head, loved, eyes that see, lungs that can breathe, a pulse, really feeling the wholeness of the moment, the rightness of the moment. Taking a couple more deep breaths to call your energy in here and now, whether you're waking up, whether you're transitioning in your day, to just really land. And with every inhale, you bring more parts of yourself here. May we call upon our wise and well ancestors, those that came before us, that run through our blood and through our bones. The wild women, the wise women, the women that lived their heroine's journey and their stories that make us exactly who we are. We call upon them to be here now, together in council, in community, and in this prayer for our lives, but also the feminine spirit as a whole, this earth. Please be here with us now. Please protect this space. Please keep us grounded and present, and in gratitude connected to our hearts. Please keep us courageous and brave and resilient in these times. We call upon the four directions, the wheel that rotates, that gives us direction when we don't know what is next or where we are going. that nature has a system that shows us that we are always on time, where we need to be within the seasons and cycles of life. With the moon, with the stars, and with the sun. We move, we turn, we orient with nature. She knows, and our body knows in unison with her. Our ancestors knew. May we remember and reawaken that wisdom and that knowledge that runs through our blood, that knows how to see in mysterious times. And when we ourselves cannot see, that they are always there weaving, guiding, dreaming for us, revealing the way. Okay, let's ride, ladies. Let's go. All right. Okay, so thank you for being here. I'll introduce myself for those that don't know me super well. I see some familiar faces, which I'm so grateful for. I'll start by saying my name is Taj Savitri. That is my chosen name, my spiritual name that I've been going by probably for like 8 years now. And I am of the Mayan Azteca ancestry. More recently, I have been in a reclamation of my own native roots, which has been its own wild journey of coming back to those ways and really remembering those ways. I am seeing some Latina women here, and I'm sure maybe you can resonate in some ways as well. And so this journey has been one of dismantling internal racism, mother wounding and healing, and father wounding and healing, and coming back into right relationship with the wisdom of the earth and the ways that the ancestors show up. One of the reasons I wanted to run this masterclass is because there have been so many conversations with women, just feeling like they can't feel their ancestors. You know, sometimes it's like, okay, we hear that word, but where are they? Like, how do I feel that protection and that closeness as I'm moving through life? And I had been on that journey. And I feel like now more than ever, it's important to be in that reclamation and that remembrance of the ways that all of our ancestors, it doesn't matter if you're Indigenous or not, were able to move through the mystery with the gifts that they have and the gifts that we have that we've inherited from them. So my abuelita passed away in January, and she was the most phenomenal woman. And I don't think that until we have someone that we love and that's close to us, that's now on the other side, passes away, we don't really realize like that bridge that gets connected between like, oh, now I have ancestors that I knew in this life that are now on the other side. And it's like very visceral in some ways. And I feel her now more than ever. And for me, it's made a lot of pieces land in a lot of ways. And let me know if you've had this experience and if it resonates with you. And I feel so grateful for that. And also there's a lot of pain in that, right? So when someone passes away that you're very close to, that's now on the other side, that becomes an ancestor. On the other side of the veil, there are stories that they hold. There are stories that are shared about them and their life and who they loved and what they were interested in and their characteristics. And some of them are good and some of them are bad. And we, try to distill that in our own relationships to them. And she was just a phenomenal woman. And a lot of the gifts that I have and a lot of the reasons that I do the work that I do is because of her. She, is this woman with a story that is just wild and deep. And She loved to dance. She was a salsa dancer. She was a psychic. She was a dreamer, but she was also a woman that loved her Bible and her rosary, and has shown me that I am exactly that. I am just a little microdose of who she was as a woman. And I think it's important that we get to see the beauty of our ancestors in that way, and how we are just another version of them in new form that continues to live on. We are continuing to weave that story and write for them. So she's someone that has just been a big ally in this life and the work that I'm doing. And so I think it's important for us to remember that just as much as we have a lot of harm, a lot of like pain in our ancestry, there's also a lot of beauty, a lot of gifts. And so that's like my intention today is for you to leave feeling just more connected to those gifts. We're in a time where there's just this obsession with healing. We're always healing. We're always broken. We're always just in the hamster wheel. And I think it's about time that we get off for them, for us, and we start enjoying life and taking the gifts that they've given us and apply that to what we're dreaming and creating for ourselves. So with the gifts that I've received from her and from that part of my ancestral line, I've been able to build a multiple six-figure, buy land, preserve land, build a food forest. And it's a lot of the gifts that I've received from her, I weave into my work, and it's how I support women. I'm able to see a lot better than most people can see when they're, having sessions with people. I see very clearly oracular sight, psychic vision, dreaming. I have dreams where I know what's going to happen because of her. And it's been a journey of learning how to weave that into my work, because I think sometimes we inherit these things and then it's like, okay, well, what do I do with it? What is this for, right? So I want to begin by saying that we all have so much pain in our ancestral lines. I sit with women and we talk about the stories of our ancestors, and it in moments just brings me to tears and also to awe. Like, how incredible that there were so many women before us that were living out their love stories, that were longing for love, that were wanting to stabilize financially and how to do certain things and make certain decisions that weren't the best things for them in order to survive, in order to do what they could do or what they needed to do to come into the next moment of just landing on their feet. And so I want to acknowledge the pain and just bow to the pain and both the maternal and paternal lines that we have that run through us in our blood and that influence us and that move us because it is a part of us. And let this be an opportunity wherever you're at in your journey to also put that to rest, to give that as an offering to the waters, to be done with that story and to not feel as though you need to continue to live it on for them. I think, again, there's this obsession with ancestral healing, healing all the things for our ancestors. And we have choice. We always have choice at the end of the day. And may your choice be something that is like living and celebrating and dancing and dreaming for them on behalf of them. Because I feel as though they would much rather prefer that. I know that, actually, that they would want to see you thrive and that they would want to see you succeed and they would want to see you in love and enjoying your life. So and I'm curious, you can go ahead and share with me, have you felt your ancestors? Do you connect with your ancestors? Are there specific ways that they show up for you? Because I want to share with you just some misconceptions about ancestry and how people feel as though they show up or reveal themselves. I think that it can be this kind of elusive thing. Like, okay, we say the word ancestors, but what does that actually mean? How do they show up? How do I make contact and connection with them? And what a lot of people don't know is that there is like a very specific language that is to be learned and how to build a relationship with them and how they show up. So one of those things is through the earth. This is why I like to emphasize connection to the natural world and to Earth, because Earth is also an ancestor. I was thinking about this morning, like how we say, oh, the Earth is our ancestors. Do people actually understand what that means, though? I don't actually think that they do. They say it because it's trendy and we say things, and sometimes we just don't completely understand. But the Earth is, as an ancestor, is because our ancestors show up through Earth. The reason being that the same force that lives and breathes through us, it's a spirit, right? It's the spirit of all. It's the spirit of creation, is the spirit in the plants. It is the spirit in us. And so how our ancestors can show up in many ways is through the spirit of the plants, the spirit of the animals. And this can happen through dreams. This can happen through a relationship to a plant, a relationship to an animal. It could show up through people in moments with certain names. It could show up through elements. It could show up through the fire. It could show up through the wind, through the waters. And one of the core pieces that I like to emphasize in my work with women, especially those who are entrepreneurs, I believe all of you here are women that are ambitious, you're entrepreneurs, is to slow down. We cannot actually attune to the connection to our ancestors if we're not slowing down. If we're always trying to keep up with the world and override our own rhythm and pace, or maybe don't understand our own rhythm and pace, our nervous system gets tight. Like we tighten up, and we can't actually open to receive and to listen and to hear and to receive those messages that come through from them. It's actually like an energetic nervous system capacity, right? So if we're in fight or flight, we're not attuned to receiving communication from our ancestors. That's not the most important thing for us. So it's so important to cultivate a life of stillness, of slowness, of spaciousness in the ways that you're creating, so that you can actually receive the message from your ancestors and let your senses to the subtlety unfurl. So this, for some people, maybe they're already attuned to it. And so for others, it's a development and a study. And I actually do believe this is a lifelong study and journey. You just find deeper layers and become more masterful. Like it's about your consciousness expanding, your sensitivity expanding. And again, why I emphasize like subtlety, sensitivity, our softness, it's because those like sweet spots, the vulnerability, the like delicate places that we're an expression of, that's where a lot of the information is, and where we can attune to the subtlety. So they show up in these ways, but we have to be able to slow down in order to listen and to open our senses to that. And so that is also a study and an understanding of your relationship to the natural world, to the plants, to the animals, to your gifts, if you resonate with being a mystic, a seer, an oracle, and how that also shows up for you. So for one example, and this is what we teach, yes, magic is very subtle. It is very, very subtle. Thank you, Rebecca. And it's phenomenal. It is a whole world of beauty and awe and wonder and ecstasy that I so long for the feminine to touch. Again, we're moving so quickly that I don't feel as though like people don't quite get it. I'm like, there's a whole world if you just slow down and just really like trust nature and life and understand your nervous system, that everything here is supporting you. And there's like a perfect weaving with the web of life. And so this is why Shamana exists. It's like coming into that deeper mastery of subtlety, of shamanism. And so our ancestors were always working with the land. They were, whether it was like you were indigenous or not, they were working with herbs, they were working with the land. Their survival actually depended on their attunement to subtlety, on their attunement to the light, to the moon, to the ways that the bees were engaging with the hive. They were always looking to nature to know how to move through life and how to step forward into the mystery with more confidence and certainty. They were attuned to nature because nature was always communicating to them about their orientation with the wheel of life, as I mentioned when we were invoking the ancestors. So that subtlety is actually it's beyond important. It's how you are going to be able to move through the changes that are happening in the world. The subtlety will always guide you, will always move you to the right place at the right time and beyond. It has so many gifts for you. So our ancestors are really attuned to that. So the women in your bloodline were working with the earth. They had their hands and their feet in the earth. They were so intimate with nature that they were able to see it in themselves as well. It was just so natural. But now that we're busy and we have so much information bombarding us, there's not a lot of space for us to listen. And it's an act of courage, to be quite honest. When the world is telling you to speed up, when it's pushing you and forcing you to create more, to control more, it's really hard for those senses to open and to turn on. So, it really is a next level of mastery. So our ancestors, we're going to speak specifically about the feminine bloodline. We can go, there's that, it's vast, right? Like, of course, we have the masculine, the maternal, or the paternal bloodline, but we're going to speak specifically for the feminine because we're all about feminine empowerment. We're women that are like moving through the world. We have very specific gifts, all very unique gifts that express themselves very differently within our work, within our desires, within our dreams, and what it is that we're here to create. So somewhere down the line, you had a medicine woman. Somewhere down the line, you had a psychic. Somewhere down the line, you had an artist, a dreamer, a lover, a poet, a dancer. Somewhere down the line were mystics. Somewhere down the line was some wild woman working with a crystal ball and lighting her candles. Somewhere down the line was a woman that longed to create art. Somewhere down the line, there was a woman that was really wise when it came to money and finances and business. And that is still pulsating through your blood. That is still there within you. It's always something that you can call upon, again, when you're attuned to the subtlety and it's something that you're cultivating. So for example, oh my goodness, the women in my family are wild. Latino women are just something else. And it's taken me some time. It's taken me some time to be like, okay, I don't have shame around how loud and expressive and late and just, they're just passionate, rambunctious women. And for a while, I had so much shame because living in a Western culture, you keep things buttoned up. If you are out of line, you're just unhinged, you're messy, you're chaotic. And so whenever I would look to my aunts, my tias, and my abuela, who was like drinking tequila up until like basically the day that she died, and then my mom coming in, like partying with her sisters and sending videos and putting on Instagram, I'm just like, I can't. And it is those qualities and characteristics that make you so special and so you. I know for myself, I work with clients that have so much fire women. And then there are women that have a lot of earth and a lot of wind, and they come to me because they're looking for that fire within themselves. So I'm going to create a bridge around this. We all have the elements within us as well. Elemental women. I'm a fire and earth woman. You try to get me out into deep waters, it's not going to happen. I don't hang like that. I have a hard time drinking water. I just don't have a good relationship with water in that way. I'm all about the fire. I will dance around the fire naked. I will like be the fire. I will wear the red. And that is because that is like in my blood. If I deny it, if I suppress it, if I shame it, I don't allow it to be a gift. So this is what happens for a lot of people when they're looking towards their ancestral line, their bloodline, and there's like this shame and this hurt and all of these characteristics and qualities of the people that like, maybe had a lot of flaws and maybe they weren't well in a lot of ways. There's always two sides. There's the shadow and the light, as there is to anything, right? So it's like, okay, they were kind of loud and maybe didn't consider the environment and weren't quite attuned, and it made for a lot of conflict. My goodness, like conflict and gossiping and all of those things, all of the shadow sides. But they were women that would never not tell you how they feel. They weren't people pleasers. They would never really hide how they were feeling in the moment. And that's something that I deeply appreciate about them and who I am. That's like, again, the bridge is, that's some of my most potent and beautiful medicine. I would never try to suppress it at this point. And when my clients come to me, they're like, oh, maybe I'm too much. Maybe I just need to like tone it down, or I'm abrasive and I'm sharp. I'm like, don't you fucking dare. That is like one of the most beautiful gifts about who you are. If you are fire, be fire. If fire is in your bloodline, be in relationship to fire, be in relationship to the element of fire, and understand that in yourself, but also in nature, in the environment. Witness how it flickers and glows and illuminates in dark spaces and rooms, because that is what you're here to do. Right. And then also know when you're like setting the town on fire and you're not connected to your anger and your rage and your passion, and there's maybe some work to be done there, but don't turn away from it. So when we look at the women in our ancestral line, and right, again, it's arranged, the dreamers, the lovers, the mystics, but there are also the martyrs. That's like a huge one for women. The martyrs, the good girls, the people pleasers, the women who are bitter, that, you know, we're just so jaded by life. And that will, if we continue to take that and entertain that within ourselves, and what pulsates and moves through us, we'll never live the dream that they also had for us. You know, that bitterness and that resentment and that martyrdom exists because there was some unfulfilled dream that at some point they gave up on. So we are just a version of their dream walking in form, right? So it's really important that with what's happening in the world right now, because I always like to keep it super real, there's a lot changing. There's so much mystery. Before I got on here, I was like, I'm not going to come on here and act like I know what the fuck I'm doing, because I don't think anybody knows what the fuck they're doing. I'm just going to bring everybody back to the earth in like the most intimate ways, because that's all I can do. And above any courses, above any trainings, above any meditation, it is the one thing that doesn't have human influence. It doesn't have ego. It doesn't have any sort of ulterior motive. It is so pure. She is so pure and generous in her teachings, and she brings us back to the source of what is true, the source of what is real, what is abundant, what is stable. So if we can come back to that relationship, then all is well. We will always be able to find our way. And again, back to our ancestors and the wisdom and the gifts that they had. So no one really knows what's going on. No one really knows where we're going. We're in a pivotal time right now on this planet. And there is this incredible bridging of the ancient, like a deeper yearning and calling to just be slow, to be with the earth, to be with what's simple. And then there's this pull towards more technology, and it's like out of control at this point. What can we do, right? So we find our dance with the both, and how to be in good relationship with what is happening. But ultimately, when you're in connection to your ancestors, you are going to have some force and some pull forward. And that is going to be through your desires, through your dreams, through your curiosities, through the things that you're interested in. And again, it's going to be very subtle. It's going to be so subtle and so soft. So in my ancestral line, my part of my grandmother's story is that she was a psychic and a mystic and all that, but she was quiet. She was like very secretive about it. She was more upfront with like being Catholic. And then her mother was a prostitute. So like that, we go into some like heavy territories of like what that is. She was she was a prostitute, and then her husband was a gambler. And I'm like, oh my God, like the things that are like there. I'm like, okay, kind of a cool story, right? It's not like the most like, wasn't the king or queen of some country or like wealthy people. They were like struggling and figuring it out, gambling, fucking, like doing whatever they needed to do to survive. And those are like, again, the beautiful parts about who we are. It's like wild, like the wild, rascally human parts of who we are that know how to move and to survive through moments of uncertainty. It just looks different for everyone. And then my abuelo was a coyote. So this is where we get into like more of the animal territories, working with the animal totems. He was a coyote. Do you know what that is? Do you guys know what that is? Yeah. So he would sneak people over the border from Mexico to the States. And he was a good man. But he was a coyote. And so when I heard that, it's like my whole world made sense. I was like, oh, there's that rebellious streak. Be like, I don't care. I'm on the fringe. It is because of him. So how he shows up is actually through the coyote. Like I see a coyote in the mountains. There he is. I see a coyote in my dreams. There he is. The grandfather, the spirit of the grandfather always coming in to protect, to guide the wisdom of the hero, right? That masculine essence and energy that maybe I didn't get to receive as a little girl, right? So pay attention to the animals that they were drawn to, or like the pieces of their stories that hold symbols, right? So part of my grandmother's passing, it's really interesting actually. As she was passing, one of the last questions I had for her was, what was her favorite animal? I never got to ask her. And as I was driving over to the hospital, um, a dead owl was on the side of the road, and I picked it up and I was like, I'm gonna make this into a medicine tool. It was like the first time. It was like during the LA fires, and I put a dead owl in the back of my car and was like freezing it. And all of these different places that I was going to, I was like, oh my God, I'm like this crazy woman with a dead owl in the back of her car, driving to all these homes, asking people if I can like freeze, put a dead owl in the freezer. Trust me, it's not what it looks like. It's like a medicine tool. And the day after she passed away was the day for me to process it. And that's when I knew that that's how she would show up, was through the owls. So if we even look at the symbolism of the owls, it's wisdom, right? It's the one who can not just see, like we look at their eyes and it's like, okay, that could show you a lot about, the characteristics of the owl, but it's mostly about their hearing. Like, yes, they have the eyes, but they're known for their hearing. They're like one of the quietest birds. And again, talk about attuning to the subtlety. It's always like this symbolism of like, are you listening? Are you becoming quiet enough where you can listen for the resource? So that's how they would go to get the mice, right? So as she has passed, whenever I see an owl, I know that she's like, okay, I'm here. Are you listening? I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. So that's how we can work with animal totems when it comes to our relationship with our ancestors, especially those that you were close to. You can ask, you can call upon, you can ask them to come into your dreams to visit you, and they will show up. And sometimes they'll show up in ways that are very unexpected, but that starts to inform you on how they want to communicate with you. There was another moment where I was like in a very deep initiation, and I needed fire. I needed to build a fire for a ceremony. And there was a man on the side of the road, a Mexican man, and he was selling wood. And I was like, okay, I'll just like grab a couple pieces. And he was like, it's free, like it's gifted. And I was like, well, what's your name? And it was the name of my grandfather. And I was like, oh, that's how he's showing up. So as I built the fire, this is where it gets kind of wild. As I built the fire, it was like one of the deepest, darkest moments of my life, building that fire and like deep prayer. As I'm building the fire, it started to make sense to me. I was like, that was a perfect weaving and orchestration of my grandfather showing up to say like, I'm with you with the fire. So something that people don't quite know is that in many traditions, when our ancestors would gather around the fire, they would share stories. And so when we are sitting next to a fire and when we're working with divination, how the fire moves and flickers, how we build the fire, if wood is collapsing, if it's sparking, that is communication from our ancestors. So when we are working with the element of fire and building fires in ceremony, because we can just build a fire, but we can also build a fire in ceremony and prayer. So as you're building a fire, that's like another way to come into relationship with your ancestors. They're present, they're there. And so as the fire is raging and roaring or whatever it's doing, you can ask questions, you can tell stories and watch the embers and how it shifts and it shapes and the flickers and what you see in the fire, as if you were looking up at the clouds, being a little kid again, and seeing shapes and animals. They will come to you and commune with you in the fires as well. So there are many ways that they can communicate with you, but you have to reach and ask for that. And again, so much of this journey is about, one, just the gratitude for who they were, the stories, understanding their stories. And if you don't know who they are, because I know that that's a big piece for a lot of people, if you don't know who they are, if you just don't have communication and contact or that information, ask in your dreams. Show me who you are through my prayers with the fire. Show me who I am through, working with the land, tending to the land, putting my hands in the soil. Show me who you were and who I am in my work in the world, through the essence of who I am, what I like, what I'm drawn to. Okay. So this is how you get to really open up the world of your mystical gifts, your psychic knowing, your intuition. Maybe you're into womb work. I'm actually really curious if some of you do, like what gifts you have and the type of work that you're doing, and if you're maybe seeing some of your ancestry present in the work that you're doing, some of those gifts that are present in the work that you're doing, because these gifts are technologies. They're here to serve you. There is a reason that you have these gifts. There's a reason that you have inherited these gifts from your ancestors to support you in these times and what you're here to build and what you're here to create. I love that, Rebecca, storyteller and writer. So perhaps there was someone that was a phenomenal writer and storyteller. And I'm not just talking about like sitting there with a book and writing things down, but someone that was like charismatic and sitting around the fire in leadership and able to share stories that had an impact. There's a shamanic art to storytelling, which we go deeper into in shamana as well. Like how there, and it's actually a trickster energy. Like the power of storytelling takes people to worlds and influences them in ways that most people could not even realize. Again, we're getting into like the deeper layers of storytelling was used to bring medicine to people, to help them have their own self-realizations and really deep ways about their internal world and what they were navigating through. So they say this, the storytelling was like, again, yes, the coyote energy is like, for me, is the grandfather energy, but it is known to be the trickster energy, like the jokester, the trickster, the entertainer. So storytelling has that element and that energy to it as well. So you have inherited these gifts to support you in, maybe it's the way that you speak, the way that you tell stories, the ways that you entertain and bring people into your space and sit around, the digital or ethereal fire that you're working with, and in creating that bridge with your community and inspiring them in that ways, and to call upon that and to bring that forward. I love that, Abby. Right, speak, coach. Yes, leading, teaching, transforming, healing. So, we're bridging this gap between like ancestors, yes, and our bloodline. It runs, it pulses through us. And right now, we're in a time where it's so essential that we are repairing the web. And I'm not talking about going into these like deep martyrdom healing loops, but we're restoring the women in our lineage. We're giving them their dignity back by how we're living and how we're moving through our lives. So many people right now are moving into states of fear and contraction and despair and, just freezing in a lot of ways, instead of living and celebrating and dancing and writing and sharing stories and art, and how we repair and bring dignity to our ancestral lines of women. Are you okay? It's a little how we do that is by living, being done with the healing, bringing those gifts forward, sharing them, bringing them into our relationship with the land, and coming back to those deep ancestral ways and roots of walking in prayer, walking as if you are the offering on behalf of your ancestors. It's never too late to do that, right? Otherwise, it's like, we see it in our family lines. I've seen it before where it's like, there are women that get to the point where I'm like, have you ever lived a single day in your life? You're alive, you're breathing. but are you alive? Like, are you really connected to all that life has to offer you? And at some point, you know, we have to bring a little bit more truth as like leaders and just be like, cut it out. That's enough. I certainly don't entertain people's stories and they come to me and they're like, blah, 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 and then this, and then no, and I can't. And I'm like, that's not for me. That is for you to bring to the fire. Give some cedar to it. That's not for other people to hold for you. That's for you to come to completion with, and you decide you have to have that pivotal moment where you're like, okay, I'm ready to thrive. I'm ready to show the women in my lineage that I am the resilient one. I am the one that trusts and believes that God loves me, that there is an intelligent, loving force that is here weaving the story for me. And I'm just saying yes to the invitations that are there to grow and to thrive. I'm not orienting and fixating on the healing obsession, because that's ultimately the martyr within your blood, right? She's like, oh, we have this thing to heal, and oh, these things aren't going right. I'm like, yeah, there will always be something. Something will happen, and they'll have something else to heal. And it's not bypassing. It's just like, okay, yeah, that happened. Like acceptance. Like, yeah, that happened. It's done. It's done. It happened. Things like that. The milk spilled. Are you gonna yell at the milk? Like until it's dry, and then you're just like sitting there 5 years later yelling at the milk? Like, we just can't do that, right? You clean it up, you move on, and then you're on to the next moment. Oh, I love hearing this. I love that, Patricia. Yes, I can see that. So, you know, this is a time to repair the web. So I want to talk about the web of life briefly, and then we're gonna like bang out the other points that I promised you that were here for me to share with you. So, are you all familiar with the web of life and like the workings and like the technology of the web of life? Right? Like, I was having a conversation the other day with a woman about the butterfly effect, how one thing happens, we do one thing, we make one decision, and it ripples into the web of life. We can think of this when we talk about the web, and when we get into more of like the indigenous teachings, we look to our grandmothers, actually. Our grandmothers were the weavers. They were the ones that were weaving the blankets, the tapestry, crochet, braids in the hair. They would weave prayers and stories into the hair. That's why hair was really significant, and like not cutting the hair. And they would weave these prayers into the textiles. And many cultures, you'll see that there are like symbols in the textiles because they were weaving, and even in jewelry, they would weave prayers. So when we look to the web of life and our relationship to the web of life, we are weaving dreams. With every decision that we make, we are enforcing that dream. Because ultimately we are becoming the ancestors, the wise ancestors that will be on the other side at some point, that have stories and wisdom to share, and decide how we want to show up and be in relationship with our daughters and sons and those that call upon us when they are, you know, when their back is against the wall, and when they're moving through the, you know, whatever is destined for earth, and, you know, whatever is unfolding right now in this moment. So how you choose to weave right now is significant. You are weaving, you're either weaving in a way where you are like almost creating holes in the tapestry of your ancestry, or you're weaving in a way where you are actually mending. You're mending the web, you're mending the tapestry. And sometimes we do need to clip the web and to be done and just weave all over again. So again, this is how we work with animal totems. The grandmother, there's a story of Spider Woman. Are you familiar with Spider Woman? Yeah, maybe, literally, yeah. So in indigenous teachings, Spider Woman is like the grandmother who comes to weave the story. So when I work specifically in womb work, my clients will actually have dreams of spiders, or spiders come visit them before they're about to get a treatment. So they're the ones that, you know, are able to navigate through the underworld and darkness. The wise elders, the women would show up as spiders, spider women. And so again, another way to work with your ancestors is when spiders show up, and they were protectors too. They would weave webs in front of the door to offer protection. If you're going through any sort of obstacle, initiation, anything in your life, you may notice at a certain point in time that all of a sudden there's webs across the door, the entryways of your house, or places that you would walk into, or windows. They work in these ways. So again, they show up in ways that most people wouldn't expect. It's more in the mystical sense. It's never like you go to the grave and you're like, I'm talking to Joe, my ancestor, and I'm trying to make connection. It's really in like the whispers and in the like softness of your heart, and the ability to unfurl and open to the beauty of the natural world, that spirit that is moving through all. How is all of this landing for you? I love that, Patricia. Alchemize, transform, just coming to wholeness, walking to wholeness, sitting in more wholeness. Awesome. I love this. Okay, great. So as we talk about repairing the web, this is where we just get to walk in beauty. And sitting here looking at this beautiful creation of the Balinese that is hanging above the entryway to welcome in the ancestors. So walking in beauty, living in beauty, walking in prayer with offerings, coming back to the sacredness of life, because it is one thing that they do remind us of: the stories that they lived, what dreams were unfulfilled, and who were they, right? That's like, it reminds us of our impermanence, and that like we too will have a point in our life where our day is done, right? Life just, it comes and it goes. So the potency of how you're living today, you can live in a way where you're fearful, we always have two choices. So it's like to be in fear and to contract, or say like, fuck it, let's ride. I'm going to expand. I'm going to grow. I'm going to like do the things that like set me on fire and that feel beautiful and self-loving, and that are, again, me repairing the web in heal, and like bringing restoration to the feminine bloodline. So to live in beauty, you get to be in these practices of dream work, of working with your altar and connecting with your ancestors there, working with the animal totems, and bringing this into your work. I'm seeing this so strongly, where a lot of the ways that women have been working and running their businesses and making money, it's not working anymore. There's fragmentation, and I believe it's because we're so disconnected from what it actually truly means to be feminine. If you guys know me, I'm so diehard about this, about like how superficial, how like guarded and sterile and like performative it is. And it's like putting a bow on and saying I'm feminine, but I have a bow in my hair, but it's not actually the true depth of what it means to be feminine. Wild, feral, deeply connected to her blood, to the sacred, to the land, to the earth, to our humanity above anything else. And there is this deep longing for people to feel again. People want to feel again. With so much of the change that's happening and how, oh, these things work, there is a numbing that's happening, like a jadedness, like being angry with God. Like, why is this not working? Why is this not happening? Why are things not moving this quickly? And so when we come back to this way of being grateful for like how sacred life is, like the sacredness of the spiders, the coyotes, the simplicity of our dreams and those worlds and spaces that we can go into, we begin to bring beauty back. We begin to bring beauty back to our ancestral lines, and to cultivate that in our environments, to draw in, to think of the stickiness of the web. We're catching and we're bringing in what is beautiful, what is nourishing, what is good, what is sacred in the ways that we're choosing to live. Now, if you're always in fear and scarcity and contracting, and being a victim to everything that's happening in the world, you're reinforcing the martyr in your bloodline. And you're also losing the stickiness of the feminine magnetism that pulls in everything that you want, everything that you could desire, in a way that doesn't require you to go out and hunt and to create and produce more. I literally do studies of this. When I meet people, I can feel into like just the qualities and textures of a woman that's contracted, like forceful and like needs things to be done a certain way, versus a woman that's like, in your own time, babe, I trust. And I'm like, I want to give you all of my money. Like, because you don't need anything from me. Like, let's go. So it's really important to bring more of that sacredness and beauty and ritual and cyclical way of working, because it puts you into the flow of life, deep connection to the natural world. And there is something to be said about that is naturally going to create a nourishing wellspring for people to want to come back to, because they're going to feel the groundedness of the earth and that ancestral wisdom that is within your work, that is within your branding, that is within your relationship to your clients. And of course, everyone's going to be different, right? Like, people come to me because they want fire. They do not want me to be sometimes I think they want a best friend. They're like, I would hang out with you on any given day, but they want to change. They want to move things forward. And they want to do it in a way that's in integrity with themselves. They are here to live life. They want to be activated by the fire. So whatever element you hold, whatever medicine you hold, whatever tendrils of the women and their expressions and who they were in your line, they actually get to not just exist, but be amplified in your work, because that you become a pillar for that particular medicine that people are longing for. I'm like definitely not for someone who's watery. I've had watery people come to me and I'm like, whoa, I can't feel you. And anything I could bring to them, they're like, well, nope, not gonna touch that. I'm like, okay, we can't dance around the fire. It's just way too hard. We're getting nowhere fast, And so the way that you move and how you are and your medicine is so perfect. It is so perfect and beautiful. And the more that you amplify that, it becomes more clear who is meant to work with you, who is meant to come in your space. The more beauty you cultivate in your life, the more people want to come and laze around in your gardens. And how fun is it to like bring forward the dream work and the animals and the mysticism? Like, you bring them into a world where they are starting to remember that in their own ancestry and their own lines. Right? We're looking for that. We're longing for that. When we're touching our roots, we're touching like groundedness and stability. If you think about it, it's literally our roots. From our womb down, it is our root chakra. And that is why so many people feel unstable and disoriented right now in the world, is because so many are orphaned from their lineages, from their ancestral roots, and they're looking for it and they're grasping for it, that they don't even know who they are. And you can see it sometimes in people's work. I'm like, great, you're a somatic healer, but who were your ancestors? What's your medicine in there? Awesome, you're a coach, but like, so are 5,000 other people. More than that actually at this point. Okay, awesome, you do womb work, but how did your ancestors do womb work? Listen to that. Listen for those whispers. Let that come through. Let that show up in your work. Let that come through in your branding. Let that be the pulse that draws people in and back to their own roots. People can feel that. They want that. And you can probably feel that in there's certain people that you can kind of attune to. You're like, why is she so alive? Why is she so real? Why does she feels so like calm and grounded and beautiful? And it's like they're connected to something that is much deeper than information. They're pulling from their roots. And not only are they pulling from their roots, getting all of that nourishment, they're letting it feed them up so that they can blossom and bloom and be seen. Right? Okay. So how repeating patterns, money, worth, visibility are inherited. This is exactly what I was about to flow into. So oftentimes what I see is women wanting to make more money. Like, it's so beautiful and natural for us to be like, I want to be rich, like filthy rich. I want to have a ton of money. I want to be able to like go do all these things and live this beautiful life. There is so much shame. There's so much shame around, obviously, the conversations around money, the investing, and like wanting and selling and all of these things. And we have to get over that. We have to get over that real fast, because it is natural to want to feel resourced to pour into other things. Now, many women didn't come, like there are most people, a majority of people in their ancestry did not get to experience an inheritance from like a king or a queen, right? Like to be the one that comes into wealth is probably new for your ancestral line. It is a new inheritance, right? And that's something that you get to fully own. So the first thing is moving beyond the shame and actually saying, I want that. I want that. I get to have that. I get to have pricing that reflects that. That is valid and okay. And acknowledging and bowing to the women that came before you that didn't feel like that was possible for them, or that they needed to work really fucking hard in order to make that work. Like blood, sweat, and tears, right? Whether it was prostitution, whether it was working 5 jobs, being a single mother with kids, I've seen it all. I've seen it all in my work with women that I've been doing for over 7 years. And there are ways that you can do it that are pulling from your ancestral wisdom and medicine that make it so much easier. Because here's what happens when one of my friends said it, like we're sometimes looking to the roots of other people and extracting from there, because we don't know our own genius, we don't know our own medicine, we can't see our own beauty, our own brilliance, our own genius, or we can and we're terrified of it. We're terrified of how much it's going to trigger people. We're terrified of actually being seen, even though we want to be seen and we need to be seen in order to make money, right? So many people are looking to the roots of other people and what is working for them, instead of looking to their own roots and their own garden and their own internal world and cultivating that. That is where everything's going to feel easier. When you understand and you can look towards your own roots with love and compassion, even with like the parts that are like deemed ugly, you are going to get the most nourishment from that place. You are going to stand out the most. You're going to have that like je ne sais quoi about you that speaks beyond any 5,000 post or advertisements that could ever happen. That's when it becomes about referrals. That's when it becomes about frequency, when it's like, who is this person? I want to know more about them. I just want to like pay to be in their world, because there's something that is so stable and so grounded and so certain, because you're pulling literally from like the ground up and through you, instead of trying to pull from all of these different strategies and manipulation and things that are working for other people that are just not, that they were never meant to be yours in the first place. That takes more effort. And it's really easy to do that, especially if you've come from a family that just didn't have a lot of money. You probably look towards other families and say like, oh, what's working for them? Oh, they're in marketing and they're in business and they're in that, and it must work for them. And it's natural for us to look towards what's working for other people, instead of tuning into like, what is my prayer here? What is for me to hold? What is for me to bring forward? And how can I pull that from my roots, activate that within my own blood, and let that come alive and be what is fueling my business, fueling my finances. So that's an important piece of like recognizing how your relationship to money and worth and visibility are, perhaps someone in your ancestral line that just didn't feel worthy based off of the wounding. Most likely it's the masculine. It usually is. Most women have abandonment wounds, didn't have really good father figures. And then that translates to like father, great mystery, not feeling worthy and feeling abandoned by life, by God. Right? So it's like coming back to bringing that energy from like out, seeking, being the seeker, to like internally guiding and journeying and pulling from the wells the wellspring that is within you, the beauty and the brilliance. I can look at a woman and I see nothing but beauty, even when she is having a real fucked up day. I'm just like, babe, you are so fucked up. I love you. And also, you need to get it together, you know? I'm like, all right, this is it. Like, your humanity is actually like where the beauty lies. And then we go into the stories. Okay, yeah, that was the thing with your mother. That was the thing here. She didn't want to be seen. Or when you were seen, she kind of like squashed you down and suppressed that, or it's cultural, right? But if you're not allowing yourself to be seen in your full beauty and radiance and power and messiness and magnetism, then there's nothing to give to. There's nothing to gift to. I see it happen for a lot of women where it's like they promote other people's businesses or they're hiding behind memes and quotes and things like that. I'm like, babe, you be the show. Like, be front facing, be the main character, shape shift into that storyteller, be the best storyteller anyone has ever heard of. Be the best shamanic practitioner in the fucking world and own it. Like, there's this thing that we do because of the women in our line to just like just a little tighter, and if I just sidestep and do this and do that, if I just play nice a little bit, that everything's going to work out. It's actually the opposite. If people can't see you, they can't pay you. And sometimes people will show their voice, and maybe they'll share a little bit of a thing here and there, but it's like, no, people can't see you and they can't feel you. What's your voice? What's your opinion? Who are you really? What do you actually want to say? Like, that's like not seeing you, who you are, what you stand for. And that becomes magnetic. A lot of women, for most women, there weren't women that would say the thing. They would stay really quiet. They were the good girls, and they suffered for it. So this is how you get to repair and own what is yours and inherit that, like, that is already there for you. That wealth is already there for you. So we're moving from the inherited survival to the embodied soul gifts. So I touched on this a little bit. So you're learning how to transmute the survival-based energy into sacred strategy, and how your womb, voice, and spirit are the gateway. Right? So it's like the source. We're instruments. I think that's like one of the most beautiful things about women when we come into a deeper, like, again, going from out there to in here, and like having such a deep, loving, good relationship with your body, with your beauty, with the characteristics, all the like weird things that you reject and hide that were probably from someone in your ancestral line. That's where you really get to blossom and bloom. There are so many versions of women that it makes me sad. It makes me sad when I see a woman that is like 15 other women that I just walk by. They're like the main characters, and then there are like the extras in a movie. And some women will die and pass away, and they will be the extras. They will be the extras in the cast. And then there will be some women, when they pass away, there will be stories about them, of who they were. They will be like legendary legends. And this is what our ancestors get to remind us of too, the stories. All we have left are their stories. All we have left are who they were, how they moved through life, their habits, the patterns. And so, yes, of course, sometimes that shows up through us, but we have to move through some of those pieces that were like deep in survival. You'll never fully live life and come into that main character energy, that legendary energy, if you're playing out that story for them. We can't do that anymore. That is literally the thing that is keeping you at arm's length from your inheritance, from those riches, the gifts, the buckets of beauty and bliss and love. And there's a really big lizard over here. Probably the biggest one I've seen in a while. I think he's eating a spider too. There's a lot going on over there. So That's really cool to see. Or maybe even a small lizard. That would be wild. He might be eating like a small little creature. So there's so much available to you and all the quirks and characteristics that you have. And my prayer is for, yeah, just women to come into that radical shift from being so fearful of life and the mystery and uncertainty, and really allowing all of their gifts to come through. And I'm not talking about the pretty stuff. I'm talking about like your ADD, your anger, your messiness, your rage, your bitterness, your ferociousness, because we are not meant to be one tone. And the biggest piece of feedback, I listen to the masculine quite often. I love men. I love the masculine. The biggest piece of feedback I get from them, they're like, I want to be around women that are like happy to be alive. Like that are just alive and like having fun and like real. And we're the only ones that like hold that on ourselves. It's like the lock and the key. It's like you got the key, but you also have the lock, right? Like the stories that you're entertaining. Yes, all those things that happened in your family. What else? What other story do you have to not show up, to not be beautiful, to not own it, to not say the thing, right? So I want to just cap this by honoring and acknowledging the ancestors that are here within each and every single one of you, pulsating, moving through your blood. When a woman comes alive and she repairs the web, and that sometimes she needs to break the web and reweave, our earth benefits. I really don't think that we can move forward into feminine empowerment without bringing forward these ways and ways of being in relationship to the land and to the gifts that we have and to money and to success, if we're not bringing along the parts that are also still needing tending to, right? It's like the radical coyote. That's not something that is really, I wouldn't say that's like a cool thing to be proud of, but it's also a really cool thing that I'm proud of, because it's the wilds, right? It's like the wild aspects of our ancestries that make us primal, that bring that animal, that wild woman alive. And that is what is most magnetic. The woman that is like a stand for truth, that is a stand for what she wants, what she deserves, and for a weaving of a new story. So my invitation for you is, after this, to go give an offering to the land, to your ancestors. Perhaps even you have an altar, to clear your altar, especially because we're here, you're receiving the energy of the ancestors coming in on this land, to give an offering to the ancestors, to clear your altar, to connect with them. If you're about to go to sleep, invite them into your dreams, ask questions. If you feel orphaned from your ancestry, and the gifts that are there, ask them to show. Every specific culture and lineage has like a world of gifts. I know for myself, I haven't even tapped into like the French lineage, which is like all Mary Magdalene. Most of it has been native recently. We have worlds within us. And that is why, you know, the learning of symbolism and shamanic journeying is beyond. It's like one of the most OG modalities of healing, of transformation, of liberation, and especially for the feminine, because we so naturally are attuned to these worlds. We can gaze at a flower and smell a flower and be like, a whole world opens up for us. It's not the same for the masculine. And so it's a deep study of that. And if you're interested in learning more about Shamana, the Shamana facilitator training, I'll have more information on that. You can reach out to me. I might stay a little bit longer if you have questions for that. And then I'll also, if you're like not ready for the full journey to facilitate in this kind of work of ancestral healing, shamanic work, divination as well. There's like a whole teaching on divining with your body in the ancestors, where your ancestors live in your body, that we go into in Shamana as well. Certain pain points, certain pressure points that actually holds the pain of your grandfather, your grandmother, and how to transmute that and to move that in your body. So that we go deeper into this, and this is the embodiment of bringing those gifts forward and weaving them into your work, weaving them into the wealth that you're creating. And we've had incredible results from the graduates. And then if you're not quite ready for the full journey, I'll also have something smaller available to you that I'll send out in an email. So thank you everyone for being here. Thank you to the ancestors. Thank you, Abuelita, for being here. Wild woman, I love you. And I hope you all have a beautiful rest of your day. And if you have questions about Shamana, I'll stay here for just a few moments. All right.